Jamestown, my hometown. Over the years, as I've gotten in conversations with others about their hometowns, I could tell they were impressed when I'd mentioned mine often smelled like baking bread. Of course, I was referring to that wonderful aroma that wafts through the air from the commercial bakeries that have resided in Jamestown for many years. When I was a small child, my father worked for Tip Top Bakery, repairing their delivery trucks. Sometimes after school, my mom would take my siblings and me to the Tip Top outlet store where Flowers Bakery is now, for a huge box of their honey-dipped donuts. We'd fight over who got to lick the sugary liquid in the bottom of the box. I have never tasted a better donut since, and it gets my vote when folks start talking about who has the best donut. I'm 53, and except for a few years in my 20s, I've always lived near the town of Jamestown. My family moved to the area in 1956. Mama, who was born and raised in Thomasville, proudly claimed Jamestown as her hometown. How many times as we drove through town did I hear her say, "I like Jamestown, it's such a nice town." I've seen many changes, and the changes are coming much faster now than before. You don't have much time to recover or grieve the loss of precious sights and places you've always known. I've had to tell myself more than once as I've seen areas developed, it's not your land. Things change. Sometimes things have to change. Be grateful for the years you had to enjoy the trees and the land by the roadways, green and unspoiled. The stretch along Dillon Road, where Riverwalk is now, was magnificent with color in the fall. Mother would say as we drove by, "This is as pretty as anything you can see in the mountains." And I can't say I miss the scary, narrow bridge that once spanned the river there. If the roads were wet, or worse, icy, there was always a fear you could slide down into the river if you had to stop too quickly to let oncoming cars pass. I recalled it happening to at least one person. Our family never tried to pass another car on the old bridge. I remember scaring my dad when he was teaching me to drive by getting too close to the railing. I didn't know my dad's bass voice could go as high as it did when he squealed out, "You're going to hit the bridge!" I still shudder when I think about the danger of the old Jamestown school being torn down. Lord bless those wise and insightful folks who saved it. It brings to mind the biblical admonition about not removing the old landmarks. When I visit the Jamestown Library that is there now and walk across the wooden floors, I seem to hear the same pops and creaks that I did during my elementary school days when our teachers had us tiptoe past the school offices so as not to disturb Principal Jackson. Or I'm reminded of those seemingly endless flights of stairs we ascended to the school library on the top floor. When I sit outside by Bo Stafford's memorial fountain, I remember him, and how to me he more than anyone else was Jamestown personified. The faces, so many faces are gone. I think about Tom Ragsdale Sr. I remember Mr. Ragsdale coming to our home with sincere condolences when my father passed away. He also donated a pew to our church in Dad's memory. What a good and benevolent man he was. But no matter what happens to Jamestown, I'll always have my memories. One of the earliest is accompanying my father into Tilly's drugstore and going over to the small soda fountain to get tiny paper cups of Coca-Cola syrup to settle the upset stomachs back home. I remember the small marble tabletops and dainty metal chairs. We peeked into Dr. Fortney's waiting room, where it seemed so crowded the patients seemed to be sitting in each other's laps. I don't think people made appointments before coming to see Dr. Fortney in those days. My favorite memories of downtown Jamestown were of Blair's store, where Southern Roots is located. We'd enter by the back door. I seem to recall the bang of a screen door, the low lights, and the cool feel of the cement floor beneath my bare feet. Joe Blair would call out a greeting to my dad from behind the meat counter.
"Hello, Mr. Small."
But we kids had only one thing on our minds: to redeem the pop bottles we had collected from the surrounding roadsides and head for the candy counters up front. And who remembers the hot dog stand in the gravel lot where the Wells Fargo Bank is now? We'd stop in after school sometimes, and our mouths would water as we'd watch Mama bring out rows of hot dogs nestled in an empty bun box. There are memories of waiting around at the old depot at the Oakdale Road crossing with my train fanatic brother Mike so he could photograph some train he was interested in. or walking with my sister Lynn and her friend Nancy down Oakdale Road to the Mill Village, or the surprise birthday party my classmates gave me at Sadie Mae's when I turned 17. What tender and melt-in-your-mouth lasagna she made. But some things haven't changed, like the sound of children's laughter coming from the elementary school yard. Soft, cool breeze that always seems to blow up the hill on hot summer days as you sit on the bench outside of Mike's Exxon. Sometimes it's hard to believe my dad and the station's former owner, Harold Hall, are not just inside the door telling each other funny stories. And when I settle into the barber chair for Rob to trim my hair, I breathe a sigh of relief that the barber shop is still the barber shop. Oh, Jamestown, please don't change too much. You are a rare and precious jewel among small towns. You've given me so much over the years and still do. I love to take walks on Main Street towards the setting sun and watch the clouds turn from gold to crimson to deep purple. As I turn around to make my way back home, sometimes I get to see one of the most beautiful sights I know, a moonrise over my hometown, Jamestown.